hit it. Go ahead. So we're
You ready?
going. So,
All right,
yeah.
we are live.
Yeah, right. So
Back again, podcast number 7 or 8.
this is Eric,
And that's Bill.
and we are Unguarded Moments.
Yes, back again.
And we decided we were going to have a little discussion about how music makes us feel.
This is actually minutes after our podcast number 7. We're still sitting here.
Yeah,
And we just kind of wanted to keep going. We're on a flow. And we wanted to see if we could maybe make this interesting for you guys.
Let's just have a discussion about why, or really how music makes us feel.
Yeah.
What is it about music that makes us want to continue listening?
All right. Well, you grew up what do you call it how you grew up? Blessed, not blessed. You grew up not cherished. What's your quote?
I lived a charmed life.
Charmed life.
I lived a charmed life.
So I'm guessing Bill. I've known Bill for a while, but I didn't know Bill when he was younger. But we're kind of similar in.
Don't talk to them. Talk to me.
Yeah, I'm talking to Bill right now, not to the whatever.
You know, and back to one of the feedback we got was, you got to talk to each other because we have too much fun talking to each other as opposed to trying to be all specific and whatever and talking to you guys.
Yeah.
When we talk to each other, it seems more fun to us.
Right.
And it's really all about us, and that's just us being selfish.
Somewhat a little more candid, a little bit more honest, or whatever. But
what the hell were you
so
trying to
so we're talking about when I met Bill. I don't know, probably in your late 30s or so, and I was probably around the same time. But Bill and I didn't grow up. We just met through a mutual place that we worked. But Bill has expressed to me that he's lived a charmed life, and I know the way kind of Bill grew up. Seems like you kind of grew up.
I had a great life.
Yeah.
So far, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
I've done some stupid stuff, haven't we all? But, made some good choices, and those all worked out. But the common thread through it all has been the music.
Right.
There's always been,
So let me ask you this.
Before you get there,
okay,
I've always had this thing since I was a kid. I've always said, there's a song playing in the back of my head. And I've always had a song playing in my head, and it's always been one of those questions I like to ask people once in a while. Hey, what song's playing in your head?
Wait, hold on. Wait.
Oh, geez.
What song's playing in the back of your head, Bill?
God. Well, right now, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. And, that's just because how it is. Between that and Barbara Seville, the Bugs Bunny version, not the official version. Let me do your crap.
Is that where he does his hair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it's called?
It's
I
Barbara
thought it was
Seville.
something of Figaro.
Well, it's
That
from
isn't
The
the other
Marriage
one.
of Figaro.
Oh, okay.
But Barbara Seville is part of that.
Oh,
if I remember correctly.
Okay. All right. We're on the same page.
And that's the fun part is I've been classically trained music-wise with my ears. And so have my children. They've grown up listening to classical music as little ones, but then they've branched off to this other, all the popular music and all that stuff. But when I was a kid, it started with classical music. And there was a lot of that Bugs Bunny influence of, any 1 out of 7 Bugs Bunny shorts or whatever you want to call them, episodes, there was always one that was a classical song that was bastardized by Mel Blanc, and they just went crazy with it and just had a lot of fun with it. But it introduced us to classical music. And growing up as a kid, my dad had plenty of, classical music albums, Neil Diamond, and old stuff.
Do you remember the Tijuana Toads?
No.
You remember the Tijuana Toads, the cartoon?
No.
No? Okay. No classical music there. I was just curious. Keep going.
It has nothing to do with it.
No, it has
and
nothing to do with anything.
totally derailed me. Let's go back to your question.
I did that on purpose.
I know. And I love that. That's half the fun. What was your question?
But when I was at Eastern Michigan, studying for my undergrad, that's the only actual college degree that I had. Started my master's, but never finished.
Good for you.
But thank you. I had the choice of doing music appreciation or art appreciation, and sure enough, what did I pick?
Music appreciation.
And it was interesting to hear how over the last 500, 700 years, how music has evolved through the different instruments and styles. I don't remember much of it, like the Baroque period and
Well,
some other ones, but
there was a lot. I mean, there was a lot of the Catholic Church promoting certain music, and that whole influence. And then at some point, like in the 20s, the Roaring 20s, when
yeah,
people just in music went wild, and there was some kind of jazz thing, and you could even go back to um, Negro spirituals during World War, during the Civil War. That was a change. There was so many cultural influences going on with music, and I love a good Negro spiritual.
yeah.
And I don't mean that in any derogatory way towards anyone. It's just a term that's used for the music. It's just.
Is it like a gospel type?
It's
Gospel
yes.
blues?
It's
like from
it is. Well, gospel
more
is
of a cultural
after.
thing.
Gospel is after.
Yeah.
And blues is after. But the spirituals were this. I've been a slave forever, and the Lord's going to save me, and I believe in this. And it's just this from deep inside,
Tells their
underneath,
story.
right from the diaphragm, and it just comes out. And the minor scales.
Well, let's touch on another podcast. I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds like something we could really get into.
Well, and it is something we could really get into, and it's something I've always enjoyed. And you and I have had this conversation before about me growing up Catholic and going to St. Elizabeth's downtown Detroit, and they had this remarkable choir that would take 20 minutes to come down the aisle at the beginning of church, and it was just this over-emotional feeling of like, wow, I am experiencing something, and
Right.
it was because of the music. And as a 6-year-old,
It's a unity, though, isn't it?
yeah, and as
You
a
think we're
6 or
losing that?
7-year-old kid being part of this and just going, it just the emotion just waves over you, and it's just ridiculous. Again, it goes back to, what does music tell you?
Well, let me ask you this.
Sure.
I've been looking to get into learning more about opera.
Mm-hmm.
And opera, I think, is primarily sung in Italian. Am I right?
Yeah.
But it's something about the voice, and it's going back to Dead Can Dance and Lisa Gerrard.
Right.
There is something about the voice and how songs are. I don't know how to say it.
There's certain tones.
Yeah.
There are certain, and it goes again. It's some biblical thing, but there are certain tones that are just the right tone for our ears, that sink in, not just past our ears, but it sinks into our soul.
Sure.
If you believe in that kind of thing,
Right.
But it just sinks into you, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that moves me. And
That's why I'm so excited about seeing Dead Can Dance.
I think that's going to be a great show. It is just going to be a great
We're
show.
going to report on that too. See if we'll take some video and
It'll be great.
post it for you guys. We'll have hopefully our video will be up by then, hopefully. And
But so, what growing up was like one of the more influential bands to you?
well,
Now, you would have been growing up in probably
I was born in '70, and I grew up.
Teenager in the 80s.
Yep. And what I was kind of getting at, and before we started doing this podcast, I was talking to Bill about what can we talk about to kind of put together a quick 30-minute podcast while Bill's here, because we do live, hour apart. So let's take advantage of the time that we have.
Right.
But I grew up with a very strict father, and I was kind of rebellious. And I think part of that influenced my music, the music I listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And it went back to bands like the I listen to Black Flag now, and it's got its own little identity. It's got its own part of history. It's part of punk rock. It's part of whatever you want to say. I don't know. And you look at bands like The Clash and bands like Husker Du, and the ones that were kind of
political.
Yeah, they were political. They were hard-driven bands. It was
rebellious.
Yeah, rebellious. But that kind of defined me back then with my strict father. But shortly after that, I got into REM, the Smiths, and some of these bands that are more
Cure.
Yeah, The Cure, a little bit more melancholy, a little bit more story driven, a
Right.
little bit folky. Um, I think when REM came out, the first four albums, you had no idea what Michael Stipe was singing about, but it was just how it flowed. I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of
The music
understood,
was good. The guitar work, the bass, the
Yeah.
drums, it all worked together. And there was this vocal that was like, what the hell's he singing? I don't know, but everything else is so good. And the vocals, the melody of the vocals matched with everything
Right.
else. You didn't really actually have to hear the words until you grew up and listened to it and go, oh.
So
that's
if you
what he's saying.
take REM, which is a perfect example, I think,
Okay.
and you take something like opera, which I'm assuming you don't know Italian or don't understand Italian, neither do I, but I could easily listen to something in opera and listen to REM and take the same thing out of the songs,
Because the
because
music
the music, yeah,
brings you in.
right,
Yeah. So, back to what we're kind of starting to talk about, which, was how the music really develops in our brains and how did it influence us growing up? I was, um, as a kid, before, even through high school, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, your classic rock and roll stuff, Queen, all that.
What about like Ozzy and Judas Priest and
That never really thrilled me.
Yeah.
Now
I
I
roller
look,
skated a lot of that stuff.
I look, shut up. I look back at that and I can enjoy it now and go, I get it,
Yeah,
but it's not like it doesn't thrill me. Like
Right.
I am Iron Man.
right.
Who did that? I can't even think of it.
Oh,
That band.
Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath, I am Iron Man.
Yeah,
Great song, great stuff. The Red Rockers and a bunch of other bands like that. Great stuff. It just didn't thrill me then.
right.
Once I went off to college, it was Love and Rockets, The Cure, Joy Division, New Order, The Cramps,
So what made that stick?
Mighty Lemon Drops.
Yeah, what made all that stick?
It was that you're going through all of these changes as a young kid, growing up and learning all of these things in college and studying stuff. And on top of it, you're meeting all these different people from all these different angles. And, it's this conglomeration. It's a social thing. Music became a social gathering.
Yeah,
I remember we would throw house parties when I was a sophomore, or I think it was when I was a junior in college. We'd throw house parties to raise rent, and we'd have people come over, every other Saturday, and we'd play music and just be loud and crazy and have fun. But it was this whole social gathering. It was like, oh, you got to hear this song. Oh, you got to hear this song. And it was like, how does this song touch you? And
Right.
it was a way to gather together and unite these different types of people and just go, yeah, but listen to this song.
yeah,
And I get it. And the guy from India who had come from Mumbai, Vinit, love him dearly, haven't talked to him in 20 years or longer, but he was like, oh, this is great music.
yeah.
But he grew up in a completely different culture.
Right.
And yet here's this other music that we can, it's a way to bond and become one.
Yeah.
I find music as a very unifying force.
So I get criticized sometimes about how often I listen to 80s music, but it brings me back to the memories bring me back to a time where I wouldn't give up those memories for anything. Between times in my 20s and 30s,
Right.
Probably from anywhere in high school age to up to mid 30s, it was a time of my life. I mean, went and saw a lot of shows and met a lot of people and went through college and that's what defined my life, and that's the music that defined my life. And it's kind of like, it's almost like it's a branding or a timestamp or some kind of
Timestamp is a good way to
put it. And it's I listen to electronic music today. I listen to country. I listen to anything. But nothing has more of an effect on me than the bands I used to listen to back in the 80s.
And I'm very much the same way with Love and Rockets. When I hear a Love and Rockets song, it places me into the actual situation I was in when I first heard it, or when I used to listen to them a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I was living upstairs, one of my senior years. I was living upstairs above Yesterdog in Grand Rapids. Don't you start with that.
No, I'm not.
All right.
I'm fiddling.
All right. But I was living above Yesterdog in Grand Rapids in a little apartment up there, and I used to listen to Love and Rockets and The Cure and Joy Division and New Order all the time there. And it was one of those where it was an emotional change going on as a early 20s kid, figuring out where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do. And that was the music for me.
Yeah.
You know, and I look at it with my kids now, and they have, what's her name? The really famous, I can never think of her name when I'm supposed to.
Lady Gaga?
No, the other one.
Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift. My kids have seen Taylor Swift a number of times.
Yeah.
And love the heck out of her. I listen to her music, and I like it. It's good music. It's fun stuff. It puts me in a situation where I understand where my kids are.
Sure.
You know, she tells stories that are similar to the stories when we were growing up, but it's just a different type of music.
Do your kids listen to anything that'd be comparable to The Cure or Husker Du or a Black Flag or a Bad Brains or something that's a little bit more NWA, anything that's more controversial, anything that's, you know what I'm saying? In other words, a lot of stuff that I listen to, people are like, how in the hell, why in God's earth would you listen to something like that? And today I look back and go, well, I listened to Black Flag, but I didn't really care for it back then. But I thought that was what I was supposed to be listening to. But that's also what got me into R.E.M. and The Cure and those other bands. It led me into those, which I still listen to today, and I still get criticism about. But again, like I was saying, it's kind of a timestamp. I can't get rid of it. It's a way that this is going to sound deep, and I'm kind of grasping for things, but it's the way kind of your mind develops and how you feel at that time, and the music you can relate to. You know,
it comes
and
down
like you
to,
say, Love and Rockets isn't a Black Flag. It's not a Husker Du, but it's a deep, well sung, well played.
It's what you can relate to at the time that it's important to you.
Yeah.
And my kids have come, like I said, with Taylor Swift, and a number of other, I don't know, I can't remember.
Is there any controversial bands out there today that people have a problem with?
I don't think there's.
I mean, the whole punk revolution happened back in the 80s and maybe late 90s a little bit, early 90s.
Well, there's Lady Gaga seems to cheese off a lot of people. I don't understand
it's sort
why.
of Madonna,
Yeah,
but that was more sexual and pushing the envelope. I mean, who cares? We've all seen it.
Right, but it's music, it's creativity, it's that energy that the young have.
Right.
When you're young and crazy, you've got all of your young and crazy chemicals going through your brain and through your body, and all of a sudden you're going through these changes and you're growing up.
Right.
And this stuff speaks to you because it kind of touches something. And that's the beauty of music, is that it touches something.
This is something that I think I find pretty crazy, but maybe other people can relate to. But I'm not going to mention any names. You don't know the person I'm talking to, but I have a friend, and his wife has no interest in music, and I just find that bizarre. I find like everybody should have an interest in some type of music. She doesn't have any interest in any. She's just listens to AM 950, talk radio. Doesn't have any.
No music whatsoever.
No. Care less about country, anything. She just doesn't listen to music.
I don't understand people like that.
Yeah, neither do I. I find it bizarre, literally bizarre. Because it's such a big part of my life. I hope it's not shallow thinking, but.
Well, right, but again, it comes down to, how did you grow up? What did you grow up around? Was music in your background?
Well, music was everywhere. I mean, I remember back in my mom, or it was my aunt's old Pontiac Le Mans listen to Honey Radio.
Honey Radio.
Remember Honey Radio?
That sounds familiar.
Oh yeah, it was AM. It was all like 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Right.
Yeah, it was the best. I mean, when I was a little kid, probably 7, 8, 9 years old, this old Pontiac Le Mans, driving around Livonia and Redford, and listen to Honey Radio. My aunt smoking.
Elvis playing.
Yeah, maybe a beer in the center console, and so I grew up, and it was like, and it was always Honey Radio, and I mean, it was like since I was born into listening to music.
Yeah.
I mean, for like a better way of saying it.
And you're right. I don't understand people that don't enjoy music, even just a little bit.
Was that a shallow way of thinking?
I don't know. Well, that's a great question. Throw some comments on ours. Yeah. Are we too shallow because we don't understand people who don't understand music?
Yeah.
Or can't grasp.
I mean, we go way off on a tangent, but I spent a lot of time watching Ancient Aliens on the History Channel.
Oh, I love a good tangent. This should be fun.
And they were talking about how back in the day, whoever built these structures, that there was a type of chanting, a type of music, a type of instrument that they could. It was basically music that resonate off pillars. It was pillars that were built with a resin and a stone together, but when hit with something, it would create a certain tone.
Like that?
Yeah, and maybe not quite that tone, but maybe that tone.
Or maybe this one.
But maybe that tone.
Okay.
But and it was a way they communicated with the gods, and they also found that true inside caverns. Caverns were made, and there were special acoustics. But again, these things were made to where there was a certain tone and frequency that was similar to these caverns, these pillars that would resonate. I don't know, but I just find it very interesting.
Well, there are archways the Romans built where you could stand on one side of the archway and speak into the arch, and the sound would travel to the other side of the arch.
I was just listening to something on Joe Rogan, and it was, oh God, who was he interviewing?
Oh, that guy,
yeah. I'll think of it in a second. But it was Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. He went to Chichen Itza, I think it was. I forgot where Chichen Itza was at. But Mexico. It was an open kind of pyramid. And the guide said, "You guys stay here. Give me a minute." And he ran down about 150 yards away and whispered something.
Yeah.
And Josh Homme said he could hear it as clear as day.
Yeah.
It's because of the acoustics. And this is all outside.
Yeah.
But it's the way the pyramids were set up and the way the structure was set up. I just find it absolutely, completely amazing.
Well, and, as a barely student of anthropology, the fact that we're able to develop these type of technologies and understand all this stuff is just remarkable to me. Where the hell are you going?
I'm doing a quick lap.
Right. He's doing his exercises.
Yes. Doing my air squats.
Jesus Christ. Oh, man. But
Cheers.
There's a way, I don't know what the hell I was talking about. But
we'll do our research on some of this stuff. I just find it.
We might. Ancient Aliens is a crap show, but it's all woo, and who cares? But
it's more than woo.
Yeah, it's
woo woo. Hold on. Some more Robitussin. No, I just find it. I went and saw Queens of Stone Age a couple years ago. Put on a pretty good show. I'd go see them again. I don't think they sounded great, but I love their music. But Josh Homme is definitely interesting to listen to. If you get into podcasts, check out Joe Rogan, Josh Homme from Queens of Stone Age. It's a good podcast.
So you had mentioned something about my kids.
Yeah.
And music that they like. And, I went on this whole diatribe with good old what's-her-name, who I always forget. But with this new Queen movie that came out.
Yeah. Did you watch it?
I have not seen it yet.
All right.
I heard it took a lot of liberties.
Did you see the Elton John one?
I did not. But I will say this: my son really enjoys Queen's music, and here it is. This is 30 years before he was born,
Yeah.
and this music was influential to us as kids,
Yeah.
and now it's influential to the next generation.
Now, were you a Queen fan?
I enjoyed Queen.
Did you like Queen, love Queen, or just
They would
was
come
Queen
on.
like the Stones? Was Queen like Love and Rockets?
Queen was like the Stones.
Okay.
They were the base.
Yeah.
Beatles, Stones, Queen, Red Rider, Red Rocker. Who am I?
Red Rocker is Sammy Hagar. Red Rider was.
Yeah. I know, but those type bands were the base that set up. All right, well, I can hear the guitar, I can hear the bass, I can hear the drums, I can hear
Right.
the vocals, I can hear, I can pick out all these things. Again, it goes back to that was the base middle part. The essential base of my enjoying music was classical music, because
Yeah.
I can still sit at the DSO
Sure.
and listen to. I can close my eyes and go, "That's the flute. There's the piccolo.
Right.
There's the violin."
So you can easily separate.
My ears can pick it out.
Yeah, I can do
I
that
can't
too.
play a lick to save my life,
Right.
but my
But
ears
if
can
you
pick it out.
practiced, I bet you could.
Don't start with me. But my ears can pick it out, and so it was that classical bass that said, I can pick out all these instruments, and then all these other bands that were playing this really cool, interesting stuff, and I can pick out those instruments, and then the next thing comes along, and it's this concentrated change between 75 and 81 of that punk, post-disco. You've got your Ramones, your Clash, the Cure just getting started, Pretenders, Blondie, all
Cure
these.
was like 82. I think they started in 82.
No, they started 77.
Yeah, that's right. They were
They
even.
started
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
77.
That's right. Yeah.
But their first album didn't come out, I think, till 79 or 80 or something like that.
Yeah.
I have all the Cure.
Robert Smith's got to be old.
He's not young. But the way the transfer went, there was that concentrated time with this just crazy, just jumping out. And, you had your rockabilly, you had regular rock and roll, you had this punk, disco crossover, just goofy, just everybody trying all this different stuff.
Right.
And it just was very interesting. And I was just at the right age to pick it up and go, oh, this is awesome. In that short little window. And then you've got your 81 through 90 where, everything got popularized. And it was just fascinating. And because of that, I got into the Love and Rockets. I got into this, that and the other. And it was just because I had these bases of these other forms, it was just interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it interesting just to think. I keep going back. We've talked about this a few times, but why is it that 80s music stuck in my...
It was when you were
Yeah.
growing up. You went through
But
those
just
changes
Yeah, but it seems
as
like
a
there's
young
more
kid,
than that.
and it
Like, why do I like the Pixies so much? Nobody... They're not the most popular band.
right.
They're very influential to Nirvana and other bands, but why do I like the Pixies so much, but yet don't really care about, like you said, like it could be Ozzy or it could be,
Right.
It's something about how you relate to the music, how you,
Right. So part of the other, if you stuck with us this long, we'd like some comments from those who are not related to us, who are also fans of the show.
Yeah.
And if you're related to us, you
Yeah,
can
please
feel free.
subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe, like, whatever. But we'd like to see comments about what are the things that really influenced you in music. What were this band was, I saw them here, and it was when I was 12, and it was the greatest show ever, or whatever. Was it Bachman Turner Overdrive?
All right, well, question.
Yeah.
What band did you see that you had new appreciation for after you saw them live? So in other words, you went to a concert, you're like, oh, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you went and saw them, and they put on just a phenomenal show, and you're like, you know what? Gave me a new appreciation for that band. I know what mine is, and I already told you.
Well, Hoodoo Gurus was one of them because I hadn't really heard of them, and I went to see because Camper Van Beethoven was opening up for them.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is going to be great. And, I had heard one or two songs by the Hoodoo Gurus. But when I saw them, I'm like, oh, these guys are great. I think, I saw Boingo probably in...
As an Oingo Boingo.
Right, but it was just Boingo,
Just Boingo.
At the time. That would have been...
I'm sure they put on a great show back in the day.
Well,
Boingo Boingo.
This was probably 2000-something.
Yeah.
And, I had loved Oingo Boingo from Weird Science and all the different movies that, the music was in, and listening to the 80s music on the radio. And I saw that show. I'm like, wow, that was just a great show. But I don't know. I guess the real transitional one would have been probably Duran Duran.
I can see that. I love Duran Duran.
I enjoyed the heck out of Duran Duran, but the whole fun part about when we went, it was 5 guys, we went and saw Duran Duran at Cobo Hall.
Yeah.
And we walked
in.
in.
Hall.
Yeah. We walked in.
There was no, there was no, what was it? It would have been Pine Knob, it would have been Cobo, it would have been, what other place to see the show back then?
DTE was something else.
Pine Knob.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Cobo Hall.
But, so we go to Cobo Hall, and just 5 teenagers, 16, 17-year-old kids walk in, open up the doors, and immediately we all acquired an English accent.
Right.
It was just hilarious.
Yeah.
But the show was phenomenal. And it was like, I liked them, and I thought the music was good, but then I saw the show.
They were a talented band.
And I'm like, oh, this is just phenomenal. This is great. I've always liked Hungry Like the Wolf.
Yeah.
They've had a bunch of good stuff after that, and it was all fine and dandy. But not Seven and the Ragged Tiger, that was the tour that we saw them on.
Yeah.
But Rio was the album that really made Duran Duran.
Yeah.
And that was, I'd go back and I'm like, oh yeah, I had the vinyl of Rio, and I've listened to it about 8 million times. And, because of that show, I'm like, wow, I just really love these guys. So,
did you have the haircut?
Probably.
I think you did.
I'm sure I did.
Mine was the Eagles. I was dating a girl, Stephanie, back when the Hell Freezes Over tour came out. Mm-hmm. And I was in college. It's probably somewhere in the early 90s. I don't know the exact year. But
says, Stephanie.
You remember Stephanie?
No, I have no idea.
But she says, we got to go to the show. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, Mm-hmm. So she went and got tickets, and we ended up getting front row tickets, upper bowl. So we were on the edge. We were looking down the stage at Old Tiger Stadium, and it was like 75, 80-degree night in the summertime. Could not have been a better night.
Mm.
This cool breeze blowing on you, and they came on stage, and I wasn't expecting a whole lot. I liked Eagles, but wasn't like I would never buy their album.
But did they open with Hotel California?
They opened with Hotel California acoustic, and the sound of that band just blew my mind. The way
with
they
the
perform,
summer breeze going,
yeah, the way they play, and the talent they have is incredible.
And Glenn Frey has been one of my favorites for a long time. And I can't think of the other guys' names, but I've got Joe Walsh, Glenn Frey, and the other guy. They each did their own album after the Eagles, and I've got each of those on vinyl.
Okay.
And all great albums, just great stuff to listen to.
Yeah.
Talented individuals.
Right,
but I could see the mood if you're out there in a nice summer breeze and just listening.
It was upper bowl, right on the edge, cool breeze blowing in off the river, and it was like 80 degrees, 75 degrees. They went on about 9 o'clock. I remember Bob Seger jumped on and did something with them.
That would have been fun.
It was a great show. I got a question for you, and I think I know the answer, but I was a huge fan, still am a huge fan. I had pictures of them cut out of magazines all over my wall. You know who they are.
R.E.M.
Nope, Kiss.
Oh yeah,
Were you a
Kiss.
Kiss fan at all, or no?
I really did enjoy Kiss. I
You
don't know
did or
if I would.
didn't?
I did.
You did.
I don't know if I would go as far as to say that I'm a big fan.
I still love those guys. I don't know what it is. Part of me growing up.
The
And I
music
think that's
is
what got me into Ozzy and Judas Priest and all that. But that was my early
they're a
ages.
gateway drug.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I kind of, as soon as I got closer, got into college or got into high school, is when I started getting into The Cure and REM and all that. And that's what defined it.
But see, Kiss is again one of those background.
It was.
I put them with the Beatles and the Stones and Kiss, and they were like, yeah, they're good. I can hear, and with Detroit Rock City, and,
Yeah.
and they've got it's a crap load of really good songs, and it's just great stuff to listen to, but it wasn't monumental for me.
Right. They weren't a deep band. It might be a party band. It might be something you might listen to at a party or whatever. But yeah, they weren't very deep. Something that either like Kiss, you didn't like Kiss. I loved them. I don't know. I still do. And they're actually coming to DT for supposedly their farewell tour. They're not going to tour anymore, but
Yeah.
I'm sure they're getting old. But
Like the 7th or 12th.
yeah, like
Rolling
Prince said that
Stones.
like 4 or 5 times too.
Mm-hmm.
But I can still appreciate them. I had them plastered all over my wall. That was Van Halen and Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd, I thought I liked Pink Floyd. I do. I appreciate. Oh God, what's his face?
That guy, yeah.
Yeah. That's what the internet's for. I'll think of his name in a second. The guy, the guitarist, phenomenal guitarist. He plays just. But regardless, Pink Floyd was kind of my Ozzy time and Priest and all that. But I quickly got out of all that and got into, like you said, Love and Rockets and Pixies and Husker Du and all that college radio, and that's what defined me going through college, and that's what stuck.
Well, and that college
David
radio.
Gilmour.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Talented individual, but that college radio stuff was the stuff that really helped form us.
Yeah.
And again, we're gonna shamelessly beg for our listeners to go ahead and tell us what were the bands that formulated your emotions as growing up as a kid. I don't care if you're 12 years old right now and you're listening to Miley Cyrus or whatever the hell's out there, or one of those boy bands or whatever. But tell us, what is it what is it about the music that you're listening to that is so much influential on you? And I don't even know if we've touched on as much as what we've wanted to.
Yeah, I think it was just kind of an overview. Have
We're
fun,
just shooting
kind
the
of,
crap.
yeah, shooting the crap.
Having
Hopefully, you guys find it interesting. Once we open up our podcast a little bit more and get some, I don't know if it's even set up yet, but a place for you guys to comment and maybe inspire us for some new, conversations. We'll get that all set up for you guys. And
we just want to talk music. We always want to talk music, and we want to make sure that we share as much of what we love about music with everybody else, and hopefully get comments from you all that say, yeah, I like this because of that, and I liked Love and Rock, or I like The Cure, or The Clash, or Stones, or whatever. If you're 68 years old and you're listening to us, God forbid, why are you paying any attention to us? But yeah, Elvis was the bomb, and here's why. We get it. We understand. We're with you. It's not who it is, it's what it does to you when you listen to it. That's the important thing.
It sounds like classical music's got a place in your heart, and so does
yeah.
80s music.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think anything beyond the 80s has had the same effect on you as classical or 80s music?
Well,
have you gotten anything else that
that's a great question. And again, it goes back to
it's almost like there's like a developmental, you develop early on as a person.
As you're going through those changes as a young person.
Yeah.
From
you have to identify with something.
14, 15, 16 through 25.
Yeah.
As an age. And that's when all those changes are going through and you're becoming a real person. And the things that you hear on the radio are the things that influence you. You know, I love, what's her name? I can never think of.
Sarah McLachlan?
The other one. The
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. I love Taylor Swift. I think she's a great person with her fans.
Right.
I think her music is, I don't want to say exceptional. Her music is acceptable. She makes good music. And it's entertaining, and it's what it's supposed to be. But as a 50-year-old ass munch, her music doesn't speak to me as much as it does to my kids.
Sure.
And the kids of that age.
Yeah.
And I get it, because I'm past that.
Yeah.
You know, but it's that time from, 14, 15 to 25. That's the developmental time, and whatever you hear at that time frame, those are the things that make and influence you.
Yeah, I find that very interesting.
I think it's fascinating.
Because since the 80s, I don't think there's music that's grabbed me in the same way.
And I'm with you on that. And like I said, I would like to hear comments from our fans and or anybody who's happened along.
Family members.
Anybody who's happened along our whatever the heck you want to call this. And just give us a comment. Say, hey, this is the thing that made an influence on me, and this is why. I want to hear it. And we'll comment. We'll talk to you. And as our podcast grows, we're gonna do more listener-based type stuff. And at some point, we're gonna figure out how we can do a call-in show and actually have a real discussion with real people, as opposed to just you and me, and just figure out, let's talk about this stuff. Why is this influential to you? Why does it make a big difference to you? What were you going through at the time when this happened? Throw those comments in there. We want to hear it.
Well, It's 5:55 Sunday night. What do you think, Bill? You want to wrap this up?
Eric, I've had a great time.
I had a phenomenal time, Bill.
I've had a better time than you.
I think I probably had a better time than you.
I don't think so.
All right.
All right.
See you guys in the next one.
Rock on, baby.
Look for us.
Yeah.